Great. Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Chris James. As Sammy mentioned, I work as a senior product manager for SciVal, so for Elsevier, based in Amsterdam. And I've got half an hour, so I want to spend about 20 minutes in which I want to have a look over Scopus and SciVal, to give a short introduction on both of those, because I don't want to assume that you know what these tools are, and then show you within these tools how you can actually take a look at yourself or have a look at someone else. Then we'll actually go online into SciVal and show how you can use tools like this to benchmark your performance against peers, so you can track how you're doing compared to peers that you selected. And that you can also use tools like this to find potential collaborators or like-minded researchers, so you can read their papers, etc., using something called SciVal topics. So it helps you look outside of your immediate network, but for people who are working in very, very similar areas to you. And then we'll have some time at the end for some questions and answers. So if you have any questions as I'm going through, please chuck them into the chat. So I'll start off with a little bit of intro onto Scopus, because it is the backbone data of SciVal. So Scopus is a source-neutral abstract and citation database. It's curated by subject matter experts, and it contains publications, so over 85 million publications from over 7,000 publishers. And we cover in there serial titles and books and journals, conference papers, etc. From this, we can actually derive around 17 million active author profiles, and these author profiles are also used in SciVal. And with the author profiles and the affiliation information, we can put together around 80,000 affiliations. Again, a portion of that is also used in SciVal, which I'll show in a second. And Scopus, obviously, you can use it for search and discovery, so finding journals, books, etc. to read, also to submit to. You can also have a look at yourself or look at other researchers and have a look at what they're working on and what their impact is, decide who you like to collaborate with, track the research, track global trends, and then also some other things here like find topics to work in and find current research and research areas of interest. So in Scopus, you can do a lot of we'd say small analyses, and then in SciVal you can take it to another level. So you can then start doing benchmarking, and you can start grouping things in a larger way to have a look at how that is tracking. So if I can get this to work, here we go. So what SciVal does is actually uses the data from 1996 until current date, because Scopus, it has citation information up to 1970, but goes all the way back into the 1800s. So we capture around 60 million items, and we get a weekly feed of content from Scopus, which is, like I said, our backbone. And then what is SciVal? So SciVal allows you to perform analyses to help inform research strategy, to help you do any benchmarking analysis, and to enhance your research success. So the idea behind SciVal is that we capture the research performance of just over 21,000 research institutions. And that also includes, of course, the associated researchers, and then the different topics that they've been published in, etc. And then we allow you to visualize this performance, so you can do some overview analyses of this. You can benchmark anything against each other, so benchmark a group of researchers or individuals or countries, whatever's interesting, with a whole host of different metrics. We have over 30 different metrics in the tool. You can also have a look at what kind of collaborations are taking place, who are you co-authoring with, dive deeper into specific areas of interest and see what makes up those areas using the trends module, and then create reports and share them with your peers. And I've been a product manager on SciVal for the last 4 years, but the tool's been around for 10 years in total. A little bit on the data side. So as I mentioned, Scopus is the backbone of SciVal, but it also contains other data around funding, patents, and news information. And all of this we're looking to expand over the course of this year and next. And I thought it might be kind of interesting to have a look at what you can actually derive from an article, because this is really the core of what we do in this product. So I've got an example of a Scopus article here. And what I'm saying is that one article can tell us an awful lot about this piece of research. So for example, we can see the journal name here, and from the journal name, we can also pick up the journal subject areas. We then have the date of it, so we know it was published in 2008. We know the title, and we can run natural language processing against the title and against the abstract to then pull out preferred key terms, so we can map it to what we call the fingerprint that we have for everything. We also know things like the author name. And with the author names, we also have their affiliation. And with the affiliation, we also have the country. So we can figure out, okay, this is actually an internationally collaborated paper with people from the UK, from Italy and France. And you can see which researchers they are and where they come from. Then, as I mentioned, we have the abstract. So we're able to pull lots of terms and information from that. We have these topics, which I'll go into a little bit of detail as well. So which topic area does this paper belong to? What keywords has the author provided, but also what keywords have come in through other databases such as Compendex and Engineering Village. So are there any controlled terms that we want to, that are being pulled in as well? And then on top of that, we know the document type, that it's an article, we know the references, we know the citations that it's received up here. So there's a whole host of information. And we can get all of this from Scopus and then basically combine it all together so that if you're interested in looking at just information from or research from Southampton, we can provide that. And that's what it allows us to do. So it allows us to take all of these different publications, and then it allows you to look at the data at different levels. So look at it from a country perspective, an institution perspective, groups of those two as well, researchers, you can put in a whole hierarchy structure if you want to, or individual topics, research areas, individual publications that are of interest to you. But that's a kind of a quick synopsis of what you can do with the data and what you can do in SciVal. Now, what I wanted to do first is to then show a little bit on the author profiles in Scopus. So with Scopus, you are able to look at different researchers. We use algorithms to match the articles together. And what we do is actually look at the name, the email address, the affiliation, subject area, citations, co-authors, all these kinds of things. And we use that to create a very high degree of accuracy with our matching. And when the papers map together, and then we start creating a profile. And as we can see here, this person has written 1,700 publications over, well, spanning from the 1990s all the way to current date. And we can start bringing all this information and get lots of rich data from it. And we use these exact same profiles in SciVal. So in Scopus, you're able to look at the amount of publications, how many citations have they received. You can also see like where have these citations come from. So which which articles are citing you. You can see who your co-authors are. You can see if there are any preprints that you've written. You can also see which topics you have published in the last 4 years. So you can see which areas are the ones which this person is focusing on. So there's lots of very rich information you can get here. And then what you can do is you can actually use this exact, look at these exact same people in SciVal, but you can use them to compare against each other. So you can have a look at a whole group of researchers and see how they're doing, and use that as a way of mapping your progress over time and looking for like-minded people. So I'm going to jump into the tool in a second. First of all, what I'd like to do is just introduce topics, because I've now mentioned it a couple of times, and I find it's a very nice way of expanding your searches without having to look and create complex search terms. So if I just scroll across, so we have big prominence in science, and what topics are, they are a collections with a common focused intellectual interest. So we actually combine documents by using citation matching. So our two documents, do they have the same kind of references? So are they referencing the same articles, or are they being cited by very similar articles or the same articles? And if that's the case, then they start to form a bond. And where those bonds are strong, we start to form what's called these topics. So of course, you're not going to have papers which are citing the same references that aren't talking about the same kind of topic. So these topics, they can be large or small. They can actually grow, or they can stay relatively flat. We have new topics which are born. And of course, with COVID-19, we had 54 new COVID topics which were discovered or which were created last year. And they're often very multidisciplinary. So we look at individual papers and look at it based on the paper level rather than looking at the journals. So there are around 96,000 of them in total. We have a metric in there which is called prominence, and prominence is basically momentum. How much are people writing in there? Are they being cited? Are they being viewed? That kind of thing. And prominence often means that something is well funded. We found that. So we have these topic areas, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into SciVal, and we're going to have a look at an area and find the topics that people have been writing in, and find other related researchers in those areas. Oh yeah, I forgot about this screenshot, sorry. Within Scopus, you also have metrics when you're looking at a researcher that you can pull up. So for this research we've been looking at from Southampton, you can see which sources they're publishing in. You can see how many publications per year, how many citations they receive, their H-index, etc. So there's a whole wealth of information. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go into SciVal. We're going to have a look at a researcher. So it's actually going to be the same researcher that's been popping up so far from Southampton. So Laos here. We're going to have a look at the outputs that come in. We're going to benchmark this research against others, and then we're going to find some like-minded collaborators. That's the plan. So if I get into SciVal, I'm now looking at Southampton University, and I know that our researcher, he works very much in electrical engineering, so I can use our journal classification here to limit us down to electrical engineering. So I'm looking at just the 4,800 publications classified in journals and electrical engineering in the past 10 years that have come from the University of Southampton. And these are indexed in Scopus. So what we can do here, there's obviously lots of metrics you can learn about here, but what you can do is then see which researchers they are. So here's our Laos, who I've been talking about already. And we can see other researchers who are publishing in a similar area or in the same area. So I can actually take these four, and I imagine they're working in a group. Imagine they're the ones who you're interested in. You can take whoever you want. I can actually now create a group of researchers. Just give this a quick name. Typing live on screen, it's always a fun one, isn't it? Anyway, so I create this group of researchers. What the system does is it quickly calculates, so it looks at all the publications that they have produced over since 1996 until current date, and then it calculates over 30 different metrics and looks at the topics they published in and all of these kind of things. So we just let it do its thing. So you can see here in the last 10 years, they've published 1,200 publications. See with those four research, and we get statistics around what they've done as a group. So this is really nice, but what you may want to do is actually go, well, let's have, you can have a look at how they compare against each other. So here we can go to benchmarking and we can select our four researchers. I'm just going to select them and add them into benchmarking. And there are many, many different metrics you can choose. I've chosen citation counts here and scholarly output here. And so you can get an idea on, how are they publishing over time and how many citations are they getting. You can see here, Laos is producing the most by far out of all of them. You can see who the other researchers here. So we have a very big difference between our researchers here. So you can see that with these metrics. And you can obviously compare using lots of different metrics, and we advise, using different metrics so that it can have a fair comparison. Now, what we want to do now is actually use these researchers to help identify other like-minded researchers. So if I jump back into overview, we're now looking at our group of 4 researchers again. This is where I have this tab for topics that I talked about earlier. So these topics are these areas of interest, which these areas of common interest where the publications have strong citation links between them. And I've got a map here, a wheel of science, which has different subject areas around the outside. And the size of the bubble is the amount of publications the university has, or sorry, this group of researchers has published in this area. And the location is which subject areas is it closely related to. So kind of physics, chemistry, chemical engineering, as you can see here. And if I click on this one, this is the one with the most publications. They have produced 190 publications in this one area. So remember, there's 100,000 different areas. They published 990 out of 1,600 around the world. So you can like dive into this and go, is this an area which is of interest? Are we looking at, am I looking at grants in this area? Are there assessments which I know are important in this? Or is it just somewhere where we want to improve and do more work? And you can see the key phrases that it's made up and the amount of publications and our impact. You go, okay, yes, this is something which is interesting to us. Let's now look outside of what we've produced. Let's have a look at what everybody's produced in the world based upon this topic. And so we can click on look at the world. It takes us into a different module called trends. And here we've got overall statistics, but what I'm interested in is authors. So find me some like-minded people. So these are people who are publishing in this very specific area of photonic crystal fibers and negative curvature. Don't ask me what it's about, but there we go. You can focus on a specific region. So I'd like to collaborate or work with people who are in Europe because it's easier for time zones. And then you can see here, Southampton pops up a lot because you produce a lot of publications. But look, there's a couple of other people here who are also highly prolific in this area. So let me take those people. I can create a new group. Let's call it, let's call it like-minded, and save and finish. And then of course I can look at them as a group, but what I'm interested in is like, okay, let's have a little comparison. Like, how do they compare to our current group that we have, or which are the best researchers from our like-minded group versus the which are the best researchers we have from this new like-minded group with citations and publications that maybe we'd want to have a look at their work, or maybe we want to reach out to them for some collaboration. So the same kind of thing, we can have a look at citation counts and scholarly output over time, and we can see there's one very prolific author here, which is Philip Russell. And then we have also Fateh Benabid. And you can then, whichever one is the most interesting to you based upon some metrics, you can have a look at their profile, see what they've published. Okay, they've published 535 publications in total, of which we know a portion of them in this subject area. We can have a look at these publications, so you can start having a little read if you'd like to. And the interesting thing here is I can go, well, who else have they co-authored with? So you can see Bath is in there, CNRS, Kansas State. Have they co-authored this with Southampton yet? So we can have a little search, oops, if I can spell. And you can see, okay, they've written one publication with Southampton. So you can see which publication that is, but it's only one. It's one in this very, very specific area where they've written lots. Maybe this is a good person to reach out to actually do more collaboration, or to read the work they're doing in this specific area. And if you want to know everything they've done and not have a time limit on it, then you can link back straight into Scopus. I click here, it takes us back to what I was showing earlier with screenshots. And here I can see their publications going back to 2002 and learn more about their full publication list in the Scopus profile. Yeah, so I know I've had to kind of zoom through this because I didn't have very much time. But what I've done is identified a researcher, could be myself, could be another researcher of interest, find other researchers that they work with, use that to look at the topics that they are publishing in, which helps to broaden our search, and then find like-minded researchers. And from that list of like-minded researchers, find the ones which we haven't yet worked with, which maybe could be interesting for collaboration later, or to read their documents or follow or look at in conferences, those kinds of things. So these are the kinds of things you can do with tools like Scopus and SciVal to help broaden your network and track your progress over time. I'd like to finish by saying that with all of these things, whenever you're using metrics, you have to be very careful with them and be responsible in the metrics you're using based upon the people you're looking at. And in the UK, I know, and further abroad as well, I know that there are a lot of institutions such as Southampton which have responsible metric statements. So these are ones where they are encouraging people to use a range of metrics. They want to use the correct kinds of metrics, steer away from using journal metrics when looking at researchers, for example. Be careful with the H index when you're looking at people of different ages, things like this. There's a link here on the Bibliomagician where you can see all of the different statements, and you can read those, I say, along with the one from Southampton. So there I will pause and see if there are any questions.